Hello everybody, I'm Don Counts and welcome into the program today. We got a great program for you because we've got someone in the house, a living legend. He has been Coach of the Year in Alabama, 1955, 1957, 1960, 1965, and 1967. He's Tennessee Coach of the Year, 1982, 1984. That might give it away for some of you, but you might not know some of this. He's the Tri-State Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia Coach of the Year, 1960. Hall of Fame. He has lots of Hall of Fame inductions. Jacksonville State University, Gamecock Hall of Fame, 1985. Huntsville Madison County Hall of Fame in 1989. Alabama High School, Morgan County High School, Pickens County Sports Hall of Fame, and Coleman County, 94, 95, and 2004. Ladies and gentlemen, we do have a legend in the house. We have Coach John Meadows here. Coach John Meadows, good to see you, my friend.
Yes, sir.
It's been a while.
Good to be here.
Met Coach Meadows in 1980 when I came to school at Lincoln County High School, and you were a inspiration to me way back then, and appreciate you coming in and talking to us today.
I'm glad to come.
Tell us, everybody, about Coach John Meadows. Let's talk about John Lewis Meadows, Louis Meadows, right? Tell us about yourself when you growing up and that kind of thing.
Well, I was born 1924. 1934, my father got killed. He was going to work for the TVA. He was a saw sharpener, axe sharpener, and all that, where they cut all that. And he got killed, and a Ford Motor Company driver hit him and knocked him way up off the road.
And you were with him, right?
No, that was a little bit wrong in the book.
Oh.
I was probably 10 minutes behind him.
Okay.
And they had him covered up, and he was bleeding around the mouth, this, that, and other. It killed him instantly. And I went over there, and when they uncovered him, I grabbed at him and fell down on him. And it seemed like it was today. I cried for about 3 weeks. Daddy was a very emotional guy. In church, you could hear him praying about a quarter of a mile. And he really picked at us kids. My brother Willie was below me, and every day when he come in from work, he'd bring some chewing gum or a piece of candy, and he'd make us wrestle, see which one got it. If he'd have lived a long time, I would have been a great athlete. I don't know what I'd have been, but we would have been mighty tough. But then, of course, my mother was very influenced in my life. When I went to school the first day, I was reading in the 3rd grade. In fact, I could read all the books through the 6th grade. She had worked with me so much. But it wasn't that I was very smart. It's just repetitions that she gave me with these little old cards and things that I could read. So I went home. I'd been promoted to the 3rd grade, and I thought I was something. Really, I was something because she had worked with me so much, you know. You know, a lot of mothers today don't do that with their children. They don't have time. They work, you know. And then I went to Falkville High School, played all sports, and made good grades. I was the valedictorian of my class. My kids say they must have just been one in that class because I'm so stupid now. And they've had all these games and machines and Twitters and quitters and everything. That's about all I know about them.
Yeah.
And then I worked, I was in the reserve a while. I worked in New York and, for American Airlines. Then when I went to active duty, and I was there several years, about 5.5 years, nearly 6. And I played sports while I was in service and enjoyed that. I didn't realize really I was in service. I was playing baseball and football. At one time I won a lot of games in a row in baseball, but I wasn't that good in football because I finished high school. You know, I was just 17 when I finished. I could have finished at 16 or 15, but the measles broke out, and my mother wouldn't let me go to school because she hadn't had the measles and didn't want to bring it into the family, you know.
That's very interesting. As you talk about in your book, you had things were sort of tough even before your dad passed away when you was 10. Things got tougher after that.
Oh yeah, well, a lot of people think they need a lot of things this day. They was 4 boys and 1 girl, and the baby was 3 months old, Henry, when Daddy got killed. And then we had a little old place. It had a $500 or $600 mortgage on it. Of course, that was a lot of money then. And they come out there and took that place away from us, and they put us on the welfare. And we were drawing, when we started, $5 a month. We were pretty rich, buddy. And then they raised it to $10 a month. So by the time I finished high school, I had an education in farming, raising crops, gathering crops, milking cows, cooking, killing hogs. Me and my brother killed a hog when I was 12 years old. I don't know how many times I shot that thing. But the experiences like that, you know, we killed that hog. We didn't know. We got it out and got the hot water on one side, and it scraped pretty good. And when we turned it over on the other side, it was set. So we shaved it on one side and scraped it off on one side. But it was a great learning situation. You know, sometimes I think, you know, in football you have happiness one night, disappointments one night. But I'd already had a lot of those before I started coaching. Then I went to Jacksonville State. I made a little All-American, and I was a receiver. Of course, I played it, cornerback, safety, and a receiver, played in, tight end. I had a lot of it in my last year there. They let me help coach some, and I learned a lot then.
As we mainly talk about football, you really like the game of baseball.
Yeah, I like baseball. I played pro baseball 3 years. Of course, I was in D, C, and B, where you get a lot of coaching. And I learned a lot there. But and I had about I had 9-4 record. That was the worst record I had in 3 years. And another thing, I was going to school when I finished college in 2.5 years. Because I was old, they called me grandpa out there on the football team. Old folks and everything else.
Yeah. Tell me about Glenda Blake.
Well, I met her in college, and we got married. I was going to Peabody, working on my master's degree, and I'd go, but she hadn't finished college, and I'd go back to Jacksonville, and I'd stay with one of the coaches there. And when she finished, she come up to Peabody and stayed with me there till I finished there.
She's been a very big part of your life.
Well, she's been the most important part of my life. Really, you talk about working, she's raised 4 kids and taught school 30 years and cooked all the time for the rest of us, you know. And we never missed a breakfast, and we never missed a supper, because she always had that meal fixed. And she done all that washing and ironing and sewing and this, that, and the other, because my salary was very limited.
How long you been married?
59 years.
Almost 60.
Yeah.
Tell me about your kids.
Well, we've got 4 wonderful kids. Our oldest boy is He's an engineer. He's worked out there for NASA, not NASA, but on the Arsenal for, he retired at 37 and a half years. Well, they wanted to hire him back full time. He says, I can't do that, so they hired him back 3 days a week. He's doing mighty well.
Yeah.
And, a lot better than coaching many times. And the second one has Judy. She's the one we're going to move close to when we move to Scottsboro. She has retired as a teacher, and she's teaching out at Southeast Junior College. She's been out there several years. And Beth is still teaching. She'll retire another year or two. And Jane is interior decorator. She lives in Franklin. She was working for, I guess, Rascal Flats.
Wow.
She said they was the nicest family she'd ever worked for.
Very good.
But that's been her job. She finished at Belmont.
Oh, Jane, if I'm not mistaken, was the first Falcon. Is that right?
Yeah.
First, she was actually in the costume.
She was crazy. She enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
And Jane has sang in quartets and this, that, and the other. She's very talented in music, playing the piano and singing, this, that, and the other.
Well, let's talk about football. Your book's about football. Back to the Basics is the name of the book. Winning is more than X's and O's. And you talk about this book. We talk about football pretty much, but it is more than just X's and O's.
Well, a lot of people asked me to write the book, and then Coach Stiles was my assistant for 13 years, and I says, well, I don't know how to use all this shorthand and this, that, and the other. So he says, I'll write the book if you'll tell me what to do. So it took us about a year. He'd come to my house on weekends, and my wife would get up and cook biscuits and ham and gravy, all that old fattening stuff, you know, nothing to kill people. But we'd enjoy that, and then we'd take something and write different subjects, and we'd write about that, this, that, and the other. So, of course, Doug was right beside me there for 13 years, and he's a pretty good writer. And we have had a good bit of success with it. We've sold about 600, 700 copies probably. Wow. And we got a lot more copies to sell.
Well, maybe this will help you with that. But one thing about it is Coach Meadows had a whole career, a whole lifetime before you even came to Lincoln County. Let's talk about your first football coaching job.
Well, the first football coaching job I got at Coleman. I coached 3 sports, and I was assistant to Grady Elmore, which was a good coach. And then I had another coach come in, and I was his assistant. He was entirely different from Coach Elmore. Was an offensive coach. He thought he could score on everybody. And then the next one come in, thought he could stop everybody. So I had 3 years of good experience, a real learning experience, because a lot of people think they play football for a while. I tell somebody you need to coach about 20 or 25 years before you learn much about the game. The other coaches, the old coaches been in a long time, will teach you a lot.
One thing you're dealing with throughout all these years are young people. And when you're dealing with young teenage boys, there's a lot involved in that time of their life.
Yeah, after I was there at Coleman, 3 years I went down to Hansville, and I had a part-time assistant at Hansville, but he was a good one. Of course, he really was a basketball coach, and another thing, he was a fisherman. He liked to go fishing, but a fine person, and went on to win many state championships. He's in the Alabama Hall of Fame too, in basketball. But my first year as a head coach, I was crazy. First of all, Coleman said that I wasn't much of a disciplinarian. I was too young to be their head coach. Well, that year, Terry Brennan took over at Notre Dame, and I think he was 20-something years old. I was older than he was anyway. I was 30, and I wasn't old enough to be the head coach at Coleman. But they done me a favor. They kicked me out. That's the way it went.
That's the way it works.
Kind of the politicians in the towns, you know, the guy that thought that. But I carried my baseball team to the state championship, lost in the final game, run out of pitchers. And then when I went to Hansville, Hansville kids, they had a good coach before me, Coach Bill Doty. But Hansville was a place where they made a lot of homebrew. And most of my players at homebrew, I mean at Hansville, drank a little bit every now and then. You know, especially in the summer when blackberries and muscadines and all that come out, a lot of them. I thought I was going to have a problem with that. But I run them boys and run them in July. You could smell homebrew all over the football field.
Yeah, coming out of their skin.
But it turned out I had a bunch of kids. I'm still meeting with them since 1955, about once every 6 weeks and sometimes once a month.
Wow.
It goes the year round.
Wow.
And that's something. The varsity gave up one touchdown, and it was kind of a tip pass that went over.
Wow.
And guy caught it behind the guy that's trying to intercept it. He tipped it on, they scored. I can still see him going down the field. And then that was, but I'd like to say this to a lot of coaches. I use my seniors as assistant coaches a lot. And of course I had Alan Green that went to Ole Miss and played, and kicked the winning field goal against Arkansas, I believe, when he was playing with Ole Miss. Then I had G.W. Clapp, went to Auburn, made all SEC. He is helping coach the line, the offensive line, this, that, and other. And I had the two best defensive tackles was G.W. Clapp and Billy Vincent that I ever had to coach. On the two the best ones. Now I'd have one that's better than this one or one that's better than that, but that was the two best ones I had in all the years that I've coached.
Wow.
And I've coached a long time.
Do you stay in touch with many of the players over the years? I know you mentioned that group. Do you have any others?
Well, yes, I have a bunch at Scottsboro. They won the state championship there over there in 1965. And I'm in constant contact with them over there, you know, and this, that, the other. And of course, from Hansville, I went to Gordo in Pickens County, and we went undefeated there. And we had some guys that signed with Alabama, had about 3 or 4 from a 1A school.
Wow.
And they went out, and boy, I was beginning to think that I was pretty good. But later up, when I got a balance of talent people, I wasn't as good as I thought. Those old coaches began to teach me the tricks of the game. And I kept learning I'm still learning right now, because football has changed, you know, a lot. And there's a lot of young men, you know, played college football and this, that, and the other. And they come out and they coach a year or two and they think I'm looking for a head job. But about all they know is how to coach one position.
Yeah.
There's 21 more positions you got to coach, you know. And it takes a lot of things, and being a head coach, you begin with a lot of problems. Assistant coach, you know, when you finish practice, more or less you go home. But when you finish practice as a head coach, you got to go see parents, you got complaints, everything, you know. Coaching is like it's long hours, low pay, and don't think you're too good when you win 2 or 3 games in a row, because the next game they're going to bring you back down to earth, you know.
As time goes on and you have games over the last 25 years or so, you had the opportunity to actually go back and watch game film. How did you do it before game film? How did you review the game? How did you think about, how did you coach?
I really don't want to tell you. I sent a bunch of my friends that had played for me. Sometimes I'd send 11 or 12, and I'd say, you get right guard, you get left guard, you get center.
Wow.
And they'd go scout a team for me, and it took me a long time to put all those plays together. And it pays you when you're coaching to have friends with all the coaches on your schedule and others that play people on your schedule. It's a lot of telephone calls, and when you didn't have no film, you got up on Saturday morning and began visiting this one, and this one, and this one, and this one.
Sure.
And time the day was over, you were wore out, but you had pretty good idea of what you was going to face Friday night.
Yeah. As you move on, you finally go to Butler, right? Is that the next school you went to?
Yeah, from Scottsboro I went to Butler. I went to Scottsboro from Pickens County.
Okay.
Then when I got from Pickens County, I went to Scottsboro, and the same principal was at Scottsboro that I had at Huntsville.
Oh.
And later on he went to work for the State Board of Education in Montgomery, Mr. Murray. But I got to, he left up there pretty soon, and then a good friend of mine that I played baseball, Mr. Ray Collins, was the principal. But at Scottsboro, they had for several years before that, they'd won big, but they're down. I had, I think, 18 players out the first fall when I got there. We had a strike. Can you imagine a football team going on a strike? They went on a strike because I got about 7, 8 basketball players out. See, Scottsboro's been a basketball town. And then some of them has been out there for football, had been cut off the basketball team. They were jealous of them. And we had a strike. I didn't know we was going to have, so I went to the principal and says, well, we'll just have to play a junior varsity game this year. We don't have enough out there. We'd got down to 11 or 12 players. But we went on and got through with the strike and didn't win many games first year. And the next year, I think we went undefeated because I got a bunch of 9th graders out and this, that, and the other. So anyway, in 1965, we won the state championship.
Wow.
But we had to beat Huntsville, we had to beat Coleman, and several teams. And then Birmingham News says, well, if you beat a team out of Chattanooga, a real good team out of Chattanooga, and Tullahoma says, we'll give you a state championship. So we went up and played them, beat them 39-0. So it was, Scottsboro was I learned a lot there. We had to haul people back and forth. I tore up my old car, and it's a lot of experiences that you have there coaching. Not many people will go through what I went through with there, you know. But we won the state championship, and then Butler offered me $10,000 a year and a car and furnish the gas if I'd come over there. Then Huntsville High offered me the job too. And I had the same principal at Huntsville High that I had at Coleman. And when he didn't work for me at Coleman, I said, well, I don't think he'll work for me over there. So then I went on to, Butler had played Fayetteville the year before. Of course, I don't think Fayetteville scored. They was down too. And Butler was down too. But Butler beat them. Well, at Butler, it was there's a lot of problems. We had that integration, you know.
Oh, yeah.
We had a lot of fights among the blacks and the whites. But we never had a fight between a black and a white out there on the football field.
Wow.
In fact, I learned a lot when I was growing up, I didn't have no money, and I had that one pair of overalls that I wore, and when I got home I washed them, and sometimes I'd try to wear them 2 days. If it was raining something, I wouldn't get out in the mud because I knew I had to wash them things when I got home, hang them up front of the fireplace. And I'm running around with this way I'm talking, but
That's all right.
I still had pride. I wanted to be the best in everything. We got these commodities, you know, when we was on welfare. Do you think I ever went up there to get any commodities? No. I'd have starved before I'd have went and got them. And the same thing, we had a free lunch. I had a ticket to a free lunch. You think I eat with a free lunch? No, sirree. I wanted to earn my lunch anywhere that I went. But when I got home, I made up for it. Because we raised a lot of peas and beans and all that stuff, peanuts, you name it, we raised them. But that's getting off the track. We'll go back to Butler's where I was.
Yeah.
First year I got at Butler there, I got to carry my assistant from Coach Larry Robertson, which was the best assistant I ever had, to Scottsboro. No, he wasn't with me. I just hired him when I was at Scottsboro. They had hired him before they hired me, so he and I were going to have to coach him. But when we left Scottsboro, he worked and we worked and we worked and we worked, and we was recruiting from the band. Everything. When we left Scottsboro, the band teacher says, "I'm glad they're gone." And in fact, we recruited everything we could find as walking that wanted to play. We got to Butler. I don't think they had won a game before we got there. It was interesting. I had about 100 and something out. And we give them jerseys and outfits, and they stole about everything I had. After about a week of that, I didn't have enough to dress out. And of course, they didn't make no money the day before. And we had a principal, Dr. Homer Krim, he was a good one, but you had to understand him. He'd say, "John, I don't believe," he always carried the money in his pocket. We'd beg money to go to a clinic, you know, and then we'd beg money to buy more equipment because he'd walked off. Well, anyway, we got through that first year. I think we won 4, lost 4 or something other. It's a pretty exciting year. And then we had the integration come in, you know. And, we had one guy made All-American. We called him the Rabbit Thomas. He went to UNA. They hadn't integrated Alabama. He could have played at Alabama. Could have played with New England Patriots.
Wow.
He's pretty good, pretty good. Well, it was interesting things we done that at Butler, and we had little success. We got where we was too big for our britches. We had to play teams in Florida, South Carolina, Kentucky, Tennessee, and everywhere. We never lost a game out of the state.
Wow. So
the coaches voted in the state, and I'm not bragging because this is the kind of kids we had, the kind of coaches we had, and our faculty was working with us real well. You can't do this when you're a head coach. You're leaning on so many people to help you. And we were voted the best prepared team in the state of Alabama.
Wow.
So that's when we had those tough times to get in the game, you know. And Rabbit Thomas was the first one we recruited, and before the Coleman game, is later on in the season, Coleman was undefeated. Rabbit got a foot infection. And this is a story that I need to tell. We had to go to the doctor and put him on antibiotics and stuff. And when we unloaded the bus at Coleman, Rabbit was on crutches. He hopped off, though. When the game started, Rabbit had got dressed. And that night, I think he gained about 250 yards on the Bearcats. And as he had passed them, them white boys would say some ugly words. And we beat them pretty good, you know. And later on, we got Bo Matthews, which was a tailback, about 6'3" or 6'4", went on to play pro ball. And he could run about a 4.5.
Wow.
And he come to Butler. I didn't recruit Bo. He come one day, I was in the gym, he walked in. I said, "What's your name?" And he said, "Bo Matthews." And he says, I'm going to enroll at Butler. I says, what's your problem? Where's your parents at? He says, "I have left my parents. My daddy threatened to kill me." Well, I said, "Where are you staying?" He says, "I'm staying with my sister." Well, we eventually messed around and got him eligible. And to make a long story short, he become a terror. And he beat Huntsville. Like to kill him, run all over him. But Bo, he didn't have no money nowhere. So this is another problem you have when you're coaching. Poor kids. So I had a booster club, and 2 or 3 of the guys in the booster club started putting in $5 a week for kids who are handicapped financially, or divorces, funerals, and all stuff like, which helped a lot. And Bo qualified for that, you know. I never did know what they gave him or nothing. But I noticed, I think the sporting goods store gave him a suit of clothes.
Wow.
But everything worked out. Well, anyway, come recruit, Alabama didn't want him. His grades were low. But Colorado called, I forget who was the coach at Colorado, and we had another Bo Matthews in school. So the guy that worked in the office, or the lady, pulled out Bo Matthews' record, the one that was in the band. He had about a B+ average. Colorado really wanted him. So then who used to be the head coach at Tennessee State up there, that was a clown, he called down there. So got the other Bo, and he wanted him. And he come down there and talked to Bo and scared him to death what he's going to do and this, that, and the other. Well, anyway, Bo went to Colorado. And he'd call me different times, needing so-and-so, and I'd call back out there. And then we had a guy out there in Colorado that kind of took care of him. And he went to the pros, you know. He made all the Big 8 and all that stuff. But then we had another black kid, and this is, you see that the story is that old John was a very poor guy growing up. He knew exactly how those poor boys felt. And it wasn't all black. That they'd like to have an opportunity to play sports. So I'd do a lot of things to get somebody to help them. And it helped them a lot. And we had another there that's called Jeff Merle. Now, his daddy didn't want him to play, this, that, and other. Jeff was going to be a great football player. He ended up playing for Nebraska. He's pretty good. He made all Big 8 too. Anyway, Jeff come in, And we worked him pretty hard the first day, he had on pads. Next day, he wasn't at practice. So the next day, about an hour before practice started, I sent 2 or 3 boys down there to get him. He went under the bed. They asked his mother, could they go under there and get him? They pulled him out and brought him to practice. The next day, I had to send a coach down there. He brought him out. Well, anyway, Jeff ended up getting a scholarship to Nebraska.
Wow.
And done real well. My past experience, I was thinking about the kids that didn't have a change.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted everybody to have a change. Because if the coach at Falkville High School hadn't helped me and carried me home some down when it was pouring down rain, I walked 5 or 6 miles home every afternoon after practice. I wouldn't have had that opportunity to play. So I'm just talking about the experiences you have. It's not X and O's. And another thing, you've got to work, you know, when I first come here, we lined them up and paddled them for D's and F's. And sometimes we had 3 coaches there to give them a lick apiece, you know, after the first 6 weeks. The next 6 weeks, there wasn't many in that line. And a lot of people says that won't help. From past experience, I know it'll help.
Let's talk about your tenure at Butler. You retired from Butler. What made you decide to come to Lincoln County to continue coaching?
Well, I had decided I'd go somewhere. They call it 2-timing, you know. You draw in your retirement and little salary too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I really don't know who hired me, but I think I really think there's a guy in Athens that recommended me. I don't know. And probably a judge here helped me some. I don't know. I really never knew. And anyway, the experience I had here, you know, is about the same as Butler. We had all these schools coming in. And every little school on the county was mad. Flatbush was really mad because a lot of them out there were farmers. And they'd been just checking them out at 12 o'clock, 10 o'clock, if what they had to do, you know, to farm. I could see that. And, you know, out here at Blanche, it was the same thing. And a lot of people will see, I was a bird hunter, a rabbit hunter, and so I went around and talked with Coach Cooper out here and then out at Flintville and all around, and knew all the ogles out there because they had farms and rabbits and quail, this, that, and other. I knew them, they'd let me, and this, that, and other. So I tried to help as much as I could, tell them that the kids had a better chance of here because of the broad curriculum and this, that, and that.
Right.
But they found out later they couldn't get them out when they wanted to because teachers up here wasn't used to that. And they're missing their assignments and this, that, and the other. So it was kind of a conflict there for a while. But eventually it turned out all right.
You actually, when you first started coaching here, you played your games at the old Central School originally.
Yes, played over there.
And then they built the stadium at the high school, and so it was my understanding you told them if you'd build them a stadium, you'd get them a state championship.
Well, yeah, I was popping my bill there, you know. I saw that we had potential enough there to do pretty good, you know. And one of the guys that recommended me told them up here, told Coach Evans and them that I'd have a state championship in 3 years, something like that. They liked that. But I like the spirit in the community when I first come here, you know, and that gentleman over there is Mom and Daddy, Martha.
Paul Henry.
And Bob Henry.
Bob Henry.
They worked like dogs in that booster club thing trying to help. They'd bring apples out to my house, watermelons out to my house, everything else, anything they could do to help the Falcons. I think they called them Mama and Papa Falcon for a while. So They really helped the thing. When we lined up to go to Middle Tennessee, had a line about 10 miles long behind them, parents and boosters going to see them play. And the kids begin to gain momentum, you know. And the biggest problem I had up here was when the football season's over, and during the winters when you really build your football team, it was just me out there in that little building where we dressed, the Roy Clark house, because I needed, at least every assistant I had another sport. Coach Edgens had basketball, Coach P had basketball, Coach Raby had golf, Coach Perry had baseball. That's when I really needed another coach. But to do the things that you need to do in off season, I help Charles County over there now, and they got about 7 out there, that 6 period, working with weights and this, that, and that. So they rotate. They got a great weight program.
Well, as you talk about the building years, the first year playing at the high school, and then in '82, you did what you said you was going to do. You made it to the state championship and won, beating Gallatin 13-10, I believe.
Yeah, overtime. That was one of the best net bunch of kids that I had while I was here. The '84 team had a lot more talent.
Almost won the state that year.
Yeah, well, we made one misconnection. One kid, we'd worked all the kid. One kid was supposed to tell this and who to block. He says he did, this says he didn't. We lost the state championship in Alabama the same way. And that cost us a state championship. A lot of people were mad about that, you know.
How did you pull off the '82 championship win? That was a great season. You lost, I think, 1 game that year to Riverdale, but you came out and won at Gallatin 13-10 in overtime.
If we had played Gallatin 20 more times after that, they'd have beat us 20. We put in a different defense. Only time I ever used that defense in a football game. My whole 50-something years that I've been trying to coach, you know. So they couldn't solve it. They had several kids that signed the SEC. They were a much better football team than we were. And after the game, only one of the coaches come over and spoke to us.
Wow.
I enjoyed it probably as much as I did because the kids that I had gave me everything they had that night. I had 2 or 3 leaders on that team, real leaders, and one was Tim Johnson. The other one was that quarterback, Slayton, and the other one probably my right guard, Trenum. Now they were the real leaders on that team. But the thing that they done, they were kind of, can you imagine Tim Johnson getting on to somebody? They were silent leaders. And Trenum, he wouldn't say much. Now, Slayton would say a few things. It's like we played Columbia, and I had a little sick spell. I got something I was allergic to. I ate something, my lips swelled up, and I got to where I could hardly talk. I went to the hospital and all that. The day before we played Columbia, of course, I'd been meeting with Matt Slayton a few minutes every morning about the audibles. We'd look at this and look at that, and where he could audible and that and other. And when we started the Columbia game, this is a big game, I called 3 plays. I think we gained 3 yards. Matt comes to the sideline, he is mad. He was wanting to start calling all of them. I says, no, wait just a minute, I believe I've got him figured out. So I tried it 3 more times. The next time we got the ball, I think we gained 4 yards. We had to punt anyway twice. And I told Matt then, I said, well, I hope the line is settled down. We had some of them on there kind of jumpy, hyped up, you know, for the game, big game. Well, Matt called the rest of the game, and we beat them 30-something. I don't know where it's 30-something or nothing to what.
Wow.
But anyway, Matt couldn't run, but he had something between his eyes. He had everything that the coaches had told him what to do. He audible right on through it, just coasted, just made a route out of it. And that's what a good quarterback did. And if Matt made a mistake, it never affected him one bit. I think he'd say to himself, I know I'm not perfect. But it didn't, he'd throw an interception or something like that. He didn't throw many interceptions because we didn't throw much.
Did a lot of running back then.
Yeah. But you, Ray, you talked about that running the football. I still believe in running the football. If you read the life story of Coach Barry Bryant, coach that used to coach at Southern Cal, Paterno, all those guys, you just read about them people. How did they win? They won working on defense and running the football. Now, they talk about some of those people that's got all the spreads and this, that, and others, just like Auburn. Everybody's after Malzone, offensive coordinator down there. There'll come a day that he'll have to run the football a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's got the trigger man. We'll see how he does next year with another trigger man. If he does great next year, I'm gonna really think. Of course, now he coached in high school and he coached at Arkansas some, and he come to Auburn. He's done a terrific job down there this year.
Yeah. Well, as you look at the your football time here, you had some good players, and through the '82 game film that we can see, the thing about it is the game went into overtime and they ran out of film, so we didn't have the last play.
Yeah. Well, Johnson scored on a sweep, and that big old Webb boy blocked a big old end. I think Webb weighed about 140, and that end weighed about 2-something. And they cut that line down, and Johnson was fumbling the ball as he went in the end zone, but he eventually got control of it.
Yeah.
That was a big win for Lincoln County.
It was exciting to hear that broadcast with Tommy Holland and Jimmy Beals doing the play-by-play.
They'll spot the ball at the 10-yard line. Falcons will have 4 plays. Wishbone formation. Ends in tight. Galton stacks it up defensively. Slayton, quick pitch back to Johnson. Johnson! 5, 3, Lincoln County has won state championship. Get out the line, the party over. Next door, look next door, y'all. Lincoln County just won the state championship for the state of Tennessee Class AAA. Woo! He'd be happy for Coach Meadows. He deserves it. He deserves it. Yeah. What a football game. Lincoln County scored on their first possession in overtime. Tim Johnson on a 10-yard run took it into the end zone to make the final score 13-10 Lincoln County. And we've just won the state championship for the Class AAA for the first time in history in the playoff system for Lincoln County.
I hadn't talked about our staff while I was here, but they've done a good job. One man can't do the coaching that needs to be done, especially when you're winning. It's a lot of people got to put in a lot of time, and this, that, and the other. So our staff here at Lincoln County done a good job.
They did. One thing that you say is success is attained when desire is combined with dedication and hard work.
Repetition.
That's a very good saying, and I'm sure that that's helped with your success as well.
Well, I didn't know nothing but work. They always accused me of practicing too long. But I always, when you see things ain't working, you try to correct it. And I know Boots Dunley come down here, and we were in the semifinals or something on this Thursday. I had the Falcons dressed out in pads. And we went out there and worked about 30 or 40 minutes on about 2 plays. Well, the next night we scored on them to win the game. Because I didn't think we could block their defense. We'd been failing every time we run it. So I just dressed them out in pads. Said we'll work on that till we get it done going.
Well, that's very good, Coach Meadows. I appreciate you coming by today to talk to us about the back to the basics. Winning is more than X and O's. We could talk for 3 days, and the book is really about for young coaches, isn't it? That's right. That's right. And there's a lot of things in there. You know, I'll talk a little bit more if I got time. You got time? Yes, sir. Nearly everything in that book, coaches would say. If you asked one of my kids what Meadows do, he'd say, down yonder and back, let's scrimmage. Well, old John didn't want nobody to know exactly what he was doing. The more you talk, the more you get yourself in trouble. But since I'm 86 now, a few things that I say. Well, we had a big game with Huntsville. Huntsville was undefeated, and we were undefeated. With John Pruitt, which wrote some in this book, he went to see Huntsville practice the day before 2 days before we were supposed to play. Well, Coach Owens, one of these guys that had everything organized and periods, breaks, 15 minutes of this and shift. He is one of the best organized coaches in the state. Well, he come over to visit John Meadows. John Meadows walked over to him and says, let's go over and see my Beagles. He couldn't get over that because the next day we played the undefeated team. Well, we went over and looked at the Beagles, and we talked about the Beagles. When we come back, I asked Coach Robinson, you about finished? He says, yes, sir, I'm finished. I says, well, it's time for us to go. Well, see, Pruitt didn't have nothing but seeing the Beagles to talk about. Well, the thing I didn't tell Mr. Pruitt was that we had been meeting every morning about 6:30 and going to about 7:30 in the gym, walking through all the stuff where we just rep. We'd change defenses and try to run this play and that play. So I felt like wasn't no use in me staying around. Coach Robinson was doing the same thing. So I just took him away. And that's what he wrote about the Beagle story. The preparation for Huntsville High started on Saturday, Sunday, every day. But we didn't run many plays. But anyway, we ended up beating them, and we were real fortunate to beat Coach. Coach Owens is a great coach. Conditioning was a big part of your regimen and practice? Yeah, we run a little bit. It's kind of funny. We went up down them hills, rolled down them banks, tried to get the party boys straightened out. That'll straighten them out. Yeah, that will. Yeah. You got to have kids that's physical enough, you know, to play the game. When I first started coaching, I had this rule. If you get tired out there, we will run more next week. Because that means you've given out, you're not in shape, you're either drinking or partying or doing things that's not good for an athlete. Well, I'd get one that's given out and the others grab me and says, you act like you hurt, where coach take you out. Get somebody fresh in. Don't act like you're tired. Because Meadows will run us to death next week. You were hard on kids, but you also were showed your spiritual side to many of the young kids and taught them the right ways of going down the right paths, as easy it is to go wrong. Well, you try
to coach that kid where he will be a good neighbor later on in life. And because if you're a good neighbor, you living right, you're a do-right man, and all that stuff. You staying with your wife, and you try to work on about losing their temper and stuff like that. Because when you're playing football, it's a up and down. You're gonna get whipped, and we're gonna win some and lose some. You got to learn to control your temper. It's so many things that football is good for you.
You've had a good woman standing beside you all this time, and that's something I know you're very thankful for.
Well, I could talk all day about how good she's been to me and how cooperative and how hard she's worked and this, that, and the other. I am one of the luckiest people in the world to live with Glenda Meadows.
Well, we appreciate your time here. We appreciate your history in football and so many young kids that you've touched their lives throughout the years.
Well, I hope I have, because you can't have a winner on your football team hardly unless he has gained a lot of ways to improve himself and to work hard, have a good work habit, and a good cooperative attitude with his other fellow man, and try to help his fellow man, and all that stuff goes into it. So you got to be a good community man. Later on when you get through. Of course, nobody's not perfect. I failed in some of them. I've had some that killed people. I went and got them out of jail. And we had a long talk, and we run for it, this, that, and the other. And then I've had ministers on my team, kids that were preachers, you know, already. They were the one that led us in prayer and talked to us about it. And it's one thing that I was always, when I was coaching, I had Church of Christ preachers coaching, Baptists, Methodists, Catholics, everything you can mention. But when that kid that was the leader of our team made his talk, he might be a Baptist, he might be a Methodist, but he was a good person. I told the coaches to keep their mouths shut. I didn't want some parrot coming up there. We was trying to force this religion on them, this, that, and other. When it comes down to the nitty-gritty, we all worship in the same one. And we all want to do right. And we got to learn right from wrong.
Football teaches you right from wrong in lots of different ways.
And to think when things is distressed. Yeah.
Coach John Meadows, we appreciate you taking the time to come by. We appreciate you writing the book and putting some history down and teaching young coaches some of your philosophies and your way of playing the game.
Well, I was a little different from a lot of people I know. When I was at one school, all those kids in there were drinking that homebrew, and I went to college clinics and things, and they said, "Why didn't you run them off?" I said, "I wouldn't have but 2 or 3 left." I said, some people discipline themselves out of a team. I just hated it real bad anytime I had to get rid of a child. Because I couldn't have nothing to do with him once he left me.
Yeah.
And I knew that I was going to try to teach him the right way. I was going to challenge him and see if I could save that person from prison. Now, some of them went on to prison. Some of them murdered people.
I'm sure you saved a lot from going in that direction too.
I hope I did. I don't know how many I did, but we, like Ed Ward taught out at Alabama A&M. And Ed had some of my boys out there at A&M going to school. And he said the main thing they wanted to talk about was how I'd helped them in life while they was playing sports. And I don't know how many of those people were bragging on me or just because they was there with Dr. Ward, and he was a good friend of mine. They wanted to tell him that story. But I've enjoyed coaching. It's been hard. It's been long hours. It's been low pay. And but I've made it. I learned to live on low pay.
As you retired from Butler, you retired from Lincoln County High School. Does a coach ever retire?
No, I haven't retired. You know, I've helped Giles County over here ever since the O'Connor boys went over there. Of course, I helped them when they was down at Lee. We won the city championship 2 years in a row while David was down there. And then I was in the press box when they won the state. I've been in the press box there. Then Joey O'Connor, I've helped him. Usually he was at my house 2 or 3 times a week during the season. I was always over there in the press box on weekend. One year I went over and helped them all. The first year they was over there, I helped them. I was on the field coaching every day.
And Joey O'Connor was on your '82 championship team.
Yes, sir. And I helped Jim Satterfield at Trousdale County. I helped them win a couple of state championships. And I've enjoyed it. Jim would come to my house, and sometime he'd bring some steaks. In the summer, I'd go up there, and we'd go up on that golf course up on the mountain, play golf all the week, but we'd look at football films all weekend, and we'd go down through each game he was going to play and kind of get him a lineup, what he was going to do and how he's going to do it. And every week, we would talk for probably 5 or 6 hours. So I never could get or forget much football, as so many people say. I learned a lot from those people too. I learned everything they was doing and what I know. So what both of us know, I knew a little bit more than he did. And then Clint, his son, they won the state championship this year, Trousdale County did.
Wow. So you've been around a lot of state championships, and we appreciate the time you gave us here in Fayetteville, Lincoln County, and we appreciate all the time you've done for all the kids around. Coach John Meadows, we appreciate your time. Thank you for the book, and we appreciate you talking to us today.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate y'all watching.